BYU refuses to lose the Big 12 championship. The playoff are in their own control, and yet they're underdogs this week. But I know why.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Texas A&M is on upset alert. What about Alabama? Are they on upset alert? And some massive, huge playoff implication group of 5 games I will talk about on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Because guess what? Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Jake Hatch of Locked On BYU Cougars is here. Why? Because I'm worried for BYU's sake, which is therefore a good sign for BYU. Is that how this works? I guess I think that's how it works at this point. So here's why I totally understand. You know, if you peruse our friends at FanDuel and the game spreads they have this week, you might go BYU 7-0, Iowa State's 5-2. BYU just had that big win against Utah. How is Iowa State favored by 2.5? Well, let me explain. It is very simple. In my view, Jake, you've got the emotional letdown factor after a big rivalry win at home. You are going on the road. Iowa State is also a solid team who happens to be off a bye and in desperation mode at this point in the year for whatever small Big 12 title and playoff hopes the Cyclones have. They have to win this game. A head-to-head with BYU would be huge. Maybe 7-2 in league play gets you into the conference championship game. But those 5 reasons stand out, and I go, whoa, Jake Hatch, this is an upset special, isn't it?
Yeah, here's the thing. Before the season, when we doled out what we looked at the schedule when they first came out, I looked at that game, speaking of Iowa State, and BYU going across the country to Ames a week after playing Utah, Spencer, and I said there's exactly one game on the schedule for BYU I believe is a scheduled loss, and it was this Iowa State game. But the 4 reasons you just laid out, they're absolutely working against the Cougars here, but in some ways, this is how BYU likes it. In
a lot of ways, yes. Yeah, all BYU needs to win is for me to try to convince myself and other people they're going to lose. That's all BYU has ever needed. Frankly, since this show has been Locked On College Football, that has translated directly to BYU's success. They are 18-2. 18-2 since Locked On College Football has existed. I just want to put that out there. So, in this spot, Jake, I look at BYU and I have dubbed them the BYU find a way to win Cougars. That's what they are. They're not going to blow you away statistically. They're not going to blow you away with the amount of NFL talent they have. They're not going to blow you away aesthetically. They're going to blow you away with the fact that they do what matters most, and that is put a 1 in the left column. That's winning, of course. So how does BYU find a way to avoid the upset here?
Number one thing is go in and control the tempo of this game. If you looked at the player availability report that came out for Iowa State, that is an extremely, extremely banged-up football program, whereas BYU, I think there was a grand total of 6 names on their availability report this week. BYU is remarkably healthy for a team that's gone through some absolute wars already, especially this past week against Utah, Spencer. So I think the whole game plan for BYU is to go into Ames, run the ball with L.J. Martin and Bear Bachmeier, control the tempo of this game. It may end up being a lower scoring game as a result, but as you mentioned, BYU, they just simply find a way, and I think that's their best bet is just to go in there, control the game with their ground game, and grind out a win.
Iowa State fans may think that I am trying to jinx them, that I don't like them, that I don't think they have any. No, there's no such thing. There's method to the madness of why it's hard to pick against BYU at the moment. Let me throw this stat at you, Jake. You were just talking about controlling the game. How do you do that on offense? By running the football. What has Iowa State done well this year? They've defended the run pretty well. Oh, wait, in their last 2 conference games, they're giving up 200 per game on the ground. Cincinnati torched them for 260, and the Cougars are going to give them, I think, a heavy dose of L.J. Martin, some Bear Bachmeier sprinkled in there as well, maybe a couple of fly sweeps from Coach Roderick and the offensive staff. I think that is the biggest thing that Iowa State has to be able to control here if they're going to win. You let BYU go for 180 or more, game's over.
Well, and that's the thing. This past week, there was a lot of concern about if BYU could run the ball on Utah's defense, because Utah routinely has been one of the better rush defenses in the entire country, Spencer. What did they do? They ran for 200-plus yards, and that's something that Aaron Roderick pointed to as a point of pride for this football program. They know they can run the ball essentially on anybody at this point, and as banged up as Iowa State appears, and you mentioned the stats that they've given up recently, BYU's got to be licking their chops at the prospect of running for 200-plus.
Yeah, Rocco Becht in this game going up against the BYU defense. And look, Rocco Becht and the offense will have had an extra week to prepare for the Cougars defense. So at least there is that. I don't know if BYU's even thought about this game maybe not until Monday of this week, Jake, because Saturday, of course, it's all about Utah and the aftermath. And then Sunday is probably a day in which football is, partially in the cards, but perhaps there are other things that are important on Sunday as well in Provo. So starting on Monday, it's full-fledged Iowa State prep, and I guess, that is an advantage for Iowa State, but I just feel like every time you look at something on paper, whatever it is, and say, well, this is a disadvantage for BYU, they just manage to turn it around, and Kalani Sitake just finds a way to win. That's why I'm struggling to get behind Iowa State here.
Well, the biggest point I think you made earlier in terms of what the recipe would be for BYU to lose this game as an upset is the fact that they're coming off a rivalry game. Last year, this, Spencer, they came off that rivalry game and dropped 2 straight games, one to Kansas, one to Arizona State, and it ultimately cost them their opportunity to play for a Big 12 title. They have been a broken record across the board in all the interviews and appearances I've heard this week about, hey, we learned our lesson from last season. We'll see if they do, because the emotion of that rivalry game, it takes a lot out of these guys, and it hurt them for 2 straight weeks after the game last year. The hope is that they learn their lesson this week and they can grind out a win at Iowa State, even maybe if they don't have maybe all of the emotion they usually have.
BYU is one of 2 ranked teams to be an underdog this week. They both happen to be on the road whilst playing unranked opponents. Illinois travels to Washington, 4.5-point dog. BYU is a 2.5-point dog here to Iowa State. I'll let you make your game pick first, and then I will make mine very delicately for the Cougars fans listening to or watching the show, who I adore very much.
Here's the thing. BYU loves playing the role of underdog. I will never forget last season when BYU went to UCF, Spencer. UCF was a sub-500 football program. BYU was ranked, and they were an underdog to the UCF Knights. I know that made this football program extremely upset.
Even I picked BYU in that one.
So I think that they thrive in this role in terms of being the betting underdog, and I think they'll do the job again, get the win, move to 8-0, and likely move inside the top 10 nationally.
Now, BYU fans have to understand what is happening here before I make my pick. I'm taking the Cyclones to pull the upset. The Cyclones find a way to get this done. I don't think BYU's going 12-0, and this is the week. Last week was the week they were going to lose, but this is actually the week. I feel like that guy in Parks and Rec that keeps telling Leslie Knope the world's going to end.
Yes.
It's happening. Zorp is coming on this day. Oh, I got it wrong in my calendar. Oh, no, it's next year. It's next year that it's going to happen. That's who I am here, picking BYU to go down, which I can't wait to watch. But do I feel confident in this pick? No.
Parks and Recs references are always appreciated here. We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, Jake Hatch, Locked On BYU, great as always. On a serious, that was a serious conversation, don't get me wrong. On a serious note, upset alerts are all over the place this week. I am this close to picking Texas A&M to lose to LSU, who I have unranked. First, this episode brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phones, the same great business phone system that you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the number one business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer. So no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. You will love how Quo, formerly Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox. So no customer gets left hanging. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. It's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss right now. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Plus, talk about college football games every single week. If you want to bet any of them, whether that's point spread, money line, if you think you know where the big upsets are coming, the point total, prop bets, everything you could possibly want to make college football and the NFL even better, FanDuel has got you covered. So what are you waiting for? I don't know either. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. If ever there was an upset alert I needed to let you all know about, it's Texas A&M going to LSU. Desperation spot for LSU. Texas A&M could be in coasting mode. If there was a game that you'd look back on during the season and say, boy, I am glad our team lost that game, it could be this spot for Texas A&M. Because when you get off to a hot start, sometimes we've seen this with Ole Miss over the years, you get complacent. You just kind of coast, you cruise, you get on autopilot, and sometimes you need a loss to give you a swift kick in the rear to remind you, yeah, you still have to go out and work really hard for everything you get. Now, maybe I'm just a talking head saying that. Maybe Mike Elko has no problem with any of this whatsoever. Here is a dirty little secret about Texas A&M. They are not as good defensively as their numbers indicate. So I don't think they're bad. I'm just saying they're gettable. For an LSU offense that is at home in a spot where they absolutely, positively must have a win. If LSU loses this game, they are not going to the college football playoff. Period, point blank, end of discussion. They're done. They are out. Not just because I don't think a 9-3 team can or should get in. I think LSU has at least one more loss in them after this game if they're not able to find a way to get it done. You could start to see a mini Penn State effect here where things start to snowball in a negative direction because I think things are already pretty negative for Brian Kelly and the Tigers right now. It's not good. This is year 4, and they're probably going to miss the college football playoff unless they can find a way to win this game. So the desperation for LSU is absolutely there. Whereas Texas A&M, yeah, you'd like to win every single game you play, of course. But I liken this game a bit to Oregon losing at home to Indiana, except Texas A&M is on the road here. Oregon lost that game, and then they went on the road the next week against Rutgers, who's not very good, admittedly, and beat them 56-10. They were at 42-3 at the half. Texas A&M might have this game be that opportunity, if you would like to view it in that way. So, Texas A&M against the two best offenses they've actually played this year. Notre Dame got them for 293 in the air and 136 on the ground. A little bit of quick math there will tell you that is over 420 yards of total offense. And then Arkansas last week, again, not a great team, but a pretty good offense. 259 through the air and 268 on the ground. Now, the LSU rushing attack has been much maligned. Why? Because it hasn't been very good. It hasn't been very consistent. The entire LSU offense hasn't been very good and hasn't been very consistent. The defense, however, has. And Texas A&M's great defensive numbers are buoyed by performances against Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida, who are all incompetent. Now, you give them credit. I don't think Texas A&M's defense is bad. I'm just saying that if you were to look at their numbers throughout the course of the entire season, you would not get a direct reflection of what I feel they are on that side of the ball, which is good, but not great. And so for LSU's offense, in a week where they have to find a way to get everything going, Garrett Nussmeier and the run game, this is a better opportunity than you might think. Who has more talent on paper? Is it LSU or Arkansas? Oh, that's right. It's LSU, and it's not particularly close. Arkansas, through better coaching on offense and better quarterback play, in particular from Taylon Green, put up a bunch of points last week, kept it close with Texas A&M. If LSU is going to win this game, the offense doesn't have to put up 30 or 40 like the Razorbacks did last week. They are going to have to hit 24 because this Texas A&M offense that runs for 196 a game, has Marcel Reed playing good football quarterback, absolutely can put up 28 or more even on this LSU defense that surrendered 31 to Vanderbilt. Now, for the Tigers in this game, I think your number one key to pulling an upset, saving your season, maybe even saving Brian Kelly's tenure as the LSU head coach, you have to run for at least 150 yards. You cannot put it all on Garrett Nussmeier. He goes into hero mode, forces the ball, turns it over. Texas A&M's defense will take it away. I do not see the Tigers winning if they are not at least in the range of 150 yards or more on the ground. I don't think you can keep Texas A&M's offense in check to the tune of 17 points and win 20-17. I think if you're going to win this game, you're going to have to figure out how it all comes together. That LSU offensive staff, top to bottom, is going to have to be the best version of themselves. And yes, the players as well, but when I watch LSU's offense, I see a disconnect between the players and the coaches. And there is nothing about the continuity between those two entities that feels like it's where it needs to be to play championship football. So here's your opportunity. Here's your moment. Backs are up against the wall. You are on the ropes. You are down. Are you out? That's the question here for LSU. I think in an urgent spot, LSU is going to find a way to win this football game with that defense. Turn over Marcel Reed twice. Notice I didn't say intercept twice. Turn him over twice in this game, not including fourth down conversions and stopping him there. No, force 2 turnovers, run for 150 or more yards, and I think LSU will go on to win the football game. I am taking them to upset Texas A&M this week, 28-24. I think they find a way to get it done in Baton Rouge, and Brian Kelly gets a win that he desperately, I mean desperately, needs for that Tigers program right now. So, is Alabama on upset alert? Answer, no, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. And I mean, when have we ever said that about Alabama before since Kalen DeBoer took over? I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, when they're a double-digit favor on the road, oh, that's right, they're terrible. Vanderbilt last year, Florida State earlier this year, now here they are, 12.5-point favorites according to our friends at FanDuel against South Carolina. Now, this is a South Carolina offense that is woeful. They run for 105 yards per game as a team, despite having a quarterback that can really run the ball. And the Gamecocks cannot do a whole lot defensively. They gave up, 29 points? Too many points last week to Oklahoma. Nothing about South Carolina is where it should be. It's a disappointing season. People like me said, hey, Gamecocks, you got an opportunity here. And they absolutely did. But they've kind of gone the way quietly because there's not as big of a narrative. There's not as big of expectations. They've quietly looked like Florida, a young quarterback that came on last year, kind of later or second half of the season, and people anointed as a potential Heisman Trophy winner this year, and it's just been a big, fat, giant dud. The difference is Shane Beamer will not be fired. He should not be fired. Billy Napier, of course, has been removed as Florida's head coach, but South Carolina in this spot, on principle, because of the history over the last season and a half and change of college football, sure, I'll say Alabama could stumble. They've just figured things out. And these are the sorts of games. Kalen DeBoer's history against top 10 and top 25 teams is very good. It's the games against the inferior opponents he can have his teams played down to the opposing level of competition. This may very well, for that reason, be one of my best bets for South Carolina in the points at home. It is in Columbia. Bama has been rolling. Ty Simpson is playing really good football. The defense is much improved. I don't think this is a get-right spot for South Carolina's offense. I don't. I think you can talk yourself into that, but Lenore Sellers does not have enough weapons to throw the football to. It is Nicholas Harbor and a bunch of I don't know and I don't trust sort of guys. So for the Crimson Tide, defensively, I think they've been improved. If South Carolina keeps this close, it's because their defensive front starts to win against the Alabama offensive line, which, like the rest of the team, not coincidentally, has played better and better since the season began. I still can't believe they lost to Florida State. who's not a good football team. Did you see Mike Norvell's answer to how they can go from losing to or beating Alabama to losing to Stanford? Man, that guy feels like he is just losing it mentally and spiral. I don't mean that in the literal sense. I mean, as a coach, it feels like he is going crazy trying to figure things out, and he's just trying so unbelievably hard, and it's not going particularly well. So I think Alabama will go to South Carolina and win. I don't think this is going to be easy. I think this is a classic letdown spot. I would feel that way even more so if the LSU game were next week, but they have a bye before they play LSU, so you avoid that direct look-ahead factor. But I think Alabama just wins this game. It's not super pretty, and you look up and you go, it was 24-13, something like that. And you go, oh, wow, South Carolina covered, but yeah, Alabama is the better team. So I don't think Bama's on big upset alert, but I am taking LSU to beat Texas A&M this week. Fun week in the SEC. Far be it from me to forget to remind you, the college football public, that a group of 5 team is going to make the college football playoff. We have a new player at the poker table, friends. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls, and they've got all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through almost any season. And we are rapidly approaching the winter months. You want to have that confidence in your car that you're good to go. Mazda gives you just that. Like the players of your favorite team, they sweat every detail at Mazda, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. One of the best college football games of the week is taking place in the state of Tennessee. And no, it's not in Nashville, because that's where Vanderbilt's hosting Missouri. I talked about that game yesterday on the show. No, you all need to be aware of South Florida traveling to Memphis this week. Far be it from me to forget to remind you, the college football public, that a group of 5 team automatically gets into the playoff every single season. If you have followed this particular group of schools from afar, and you haven't tracked it on a week-to-week basis, don't worry, that's what I've been doing. The heavy hitters are still there. Boise State, outside chance. But South Florida, yep, still in the fold. Tulane, those 2 teams are both in my top 25. Memphis, I did not believe in. They got upset by UAB last week. Bounce back opportunity here for the Tigers. At home, against top 20 South Florida. I think that's slightly overrated. I have them on the back end of the top 25 or the 23-24 range. But again, that's splitting hairs. I don't have a huge objection to that, because South Florida's only loss is going at Miami, and yeah, they got beat pretty soundly in that game, but just think about it. If Miami had not played South Florida and South Florida instead played FAU and won, they'd be 7-0, and then we'd look at them differently, which is silly. So I think South Florida being ranked is fully appropriate, and they are among the group of 5 favorites this year. Now, Tulane has got 2 Power 4 wins, which, might I remind you, are holding up very well. And Tulane's only loss is very similar, frankly, to South Florida. South Florida has the better loss, but Tulane has the better win. That's why I have the Green Wave ranked ahead of the Bulls in my top 25 this week. Because Tulane has got wins over Northwestern, who's 5-2, 3-1 in Big Ten play, and Duke, who's 3-1 in the ACC. So Memphis hosting South Florida, the Bulls are favored by 4.5 points on the road. Winner of this game is in a prime position to go to the American Conference Championship game. Remember, neither one, let me backtrack there, because I almost stumbled. Memphis has a loss to a group of 5 team. It was an upset. UAB fired Trent Dilfer, and then somehow the Blazers were able to knock off the Tigers right as they'd gotten into the top 25. If you beat South Florida, that loss should get overlooked, in the same way that Alabama's loss to Florida State, which keeps looking worse and worse, gets overlooked in the group of 5 stage of things. So for Memphis in this spot, you have a massive opportunity. Just forget what happened last week. Control your own destiny to go to the American Championship game. I'm not sold on Navy yet. They deserve to be mentioned. They deserve to be mentioned. Army won the American last year. Army's not going to win it this year. Hey, maybe Navy wins it this season. They're still undefeated. So I don't want to disregard the midshipment there. The Army-Navy game could be awesome. It's always awesome no matter what. But there could be some college football playoff stakes. We had that discussion last year, and it fizzled out a bit. And the game was still spectacularly awesome, and I love that it is an American conference game. That just looks, sounds, and feels very, very right. So for South Florida, if their offense gets rolling, I don't think Memphis can keep up. Because I don't think there are a lot of Group of 5 teams in all of college football that can keep up with South Florida's offense. They are really good. They have played well all season long. The only team that's been able to seriously keep them in check has been Florida. And we know the talent discrepancy there from South Florida to Florida. And by the way, South Florida won the football game. The offense had the go-ahead drive there late to kick the field goal in Gainesville. So that's one game. But let me introduce you to a new player at the table. Think back to that iconic poker room scene at the club in Ocean's 11 when Rusty comes back from the bar and there's a new player at the table, and it's George Clooney. San Diego State is George Clooney because he's at the table and he belongs there. And it is becoming more and more evident by the week that San Diego State deserves to have a seat. Now, they could get played out. They could bet out on a pair of twos and realize, oh, we're going against straight flush. That's not going to work. Okay, straight flush was an extreme example. They bet out with pocket twos, looking for a third. They don't get it. And then at the end of the hand, their opponent goes, yeah, I've got 3 queens, so I'll take that pot now. That could absolutely happen. San Diego State travels to Fresno State this week. That is not going to be an easy football game. It is a sub-field goal point spread, according to our friends at FanDuel. Jaden Denegal, the Michigan transfer at quarterback, has been solid, but it is the San Diego State defense that has been absolutely lethal. Do you remember the name? And my everydayers out there will. Jaren Kiave Sangopolotele. I didn't say that perfectly. Let me try that again. Jaren Kiave Sangopolotele. Do you remember that name? Yes. Yes? Good. That means you're paying attention to college football. I have said several times this year that if he were the quarterback at Texas, the Longhorns would be unbeaten. I stand by that proposition, by the way, because Texas's defense is really good. Arch Manning, the offense is very not good. The offensive line is also really, really bad there for the Longhorns, which is odd because it's Texas. But, O-line can be a fickle thing. Anyway, JKS and the Cal Bears, after their early hot start, had some people discussing whether they could go to the college football playoff in the ACC championship game. Neither of those things going to happen. They're a good team this year, but are they going to have a championship year? No, which should surprise absolutely positively nobody. Do you know what this San Diego State defense did to JKS and the Cal offense? 0 piece. 0 piece. Not a lot of people watched that game. I did. JKS and the offense couldn't score. This San Diego State defense, with a head coach who's an offensive guy, just keep that in mind when coaching searches come available. Colorado State has a head coaching vacancy. San Diego State's defensive coordinator might be getting a call. This is a unit that has been playing absolutely incredible. They are allowing 259.7 yards a game. We'll round it up to 260. They're giving up 260 yards per game this year, and they've got a Power 4 win. They have not lost a game in Mountain West play just yet. Their only loss is to Washington State on the road, which is not as bad of a loss as Cal is a great win because you beat the Golden Bears 34-0. So it is early, and San Diego State has a lot more to prove, but right now they're on track to go to the Mountain West championship game. Well, if they keep racking up wins, and Fresno State is a good team in the Mountain West this year, so that might give them some cachet, some credit to sneak into the top 25 at some point. Don't be surprised if, and this is an if they are able to continue winning, they are going to wind up being a contender to be the highest ranked Group of 5 team if they can find their way to the Mountain West championship game. Now, their showdown with Boise State on November 15th looms large, but before then, they have to play at Fresno State, at home against Wyoming, and at Hawaii. This week in Fresno, tough football game. Fresno's pretty darn good. That game's on FS1 if you would like to watch at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. Wyoming the next week, Hawaii the week after that on the road. Wyoming has not been very good. Hawaii's been solid this year. If they're able to go 3-0 those games, the game against Boise State will have as big a ramifications for the college football playoff as far as the Mountain West is concerned as there has been since UNLV and Boise squared off last year in the Mountain West Championship game. That one will be absolutely massive. And at that time, if San Diego State goes 3-0 in their next three, they could absolutely find themselves in the top 25. So the group of 5 teams that are pushing for that playoff spot, you shouldn't look at Tulane or South Florida and say, we're getting tired of them or anything like that. Keep Navy in the back of your mind. Understand if Memphis wins this week, that can kind of nullify or equal out what happened last week to UAB. But there is a new player at the table. And San Diego State, they're dealt a hand. Let's see if they play it correctly. You got to play the cards you're dealt in poker. Good news, San Diego State is a lot more control, doesn't just need luck and a good hand to go forward and find themselves in a position to make the playoff. But Sean Lewis, in his second year, former OC at Colorado, was the head coach at Kent State before that. I always like this hire, and San Diego State has taken a big step forward this year. Their offense, nothing incredible. From time to time, it can be good. It is that defense that can carry them. Defense travels 2 of their next 3 on the road. Let's see what happens. But keep your eye on those group of 5 games. South Florida goes to Memphis, and San Diego State goes to Fresno State. If one of those road teams prevails and the other one does not, there could be a flip in the rankings, and there will certainly be a flip in how I view their ability to make the college football playoff. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.